Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Whitey and Wills show. This is episode number 22. Today is Sunday, February 13th, Super Bowl Sunday. So we're recording a little bit earlier in the day because, God forbid, we don't want to be missing any. We don't want to be missing any of that. I know that I'm sure that Mike has some plans to watch that game, and I'll bet our guest today does as well. Joining us for episode number 22 is the one and only Dave Bartlett, a guy that you Effingham area sports fans, that's a name that it's going to have some instant recognition. Mike, as usual, working those connections to get us good guest after good guest, and this week is no different. Mike, why don't I let you take care of some additional introductions here?
Well, I can do that. I just, number one, I unfortunately spent a lot of time with Doug Moser yesterday, and he wanted to pass along hello to you. So he said you've probably already forgotten who he was. So
no, I have not forgotten.
Well, David, just for starters, you guys have been in Macomb 25 years now.
That's we moved here in 1997.
Okay, so roughly 25 years since you've been around, and that seems like an awfully long time because it doesn't really seem that long ago. But
no, it really doesn't. That's for sure.
So when you went there strictly as you were activities director, correct?
Activities athletics director.
Right.
1997, and I stayed that way until 3 years ago, and I retired.
So you've been retired 3 years now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Martha retired also?
Yes, she's fully retired. I'm actually doing some part-time work for the school district to keep me busy, and do a little work for the Regional Office of Education. And I do serve on the Macomb Western Holiday Tournament Committee. It's a 75-year-old holiday tournament held at Western, Illinois, and so that gives me my athletic fix for
there you go
for each year.
Well, tell me about what your kids are doing.
Well, I have 3 children. Patty is the oldest, and she lives in Jackson, Missouri, which is actually connected to Cape Girardeau, Missouri. She's married to Seth Harrell, who's the principal of Jackson High School in Jackson. And they have 2 kids, and Patty works at Montgomery Bank in Cape Girardeau, and she serves as a cash management officer for Montgomery Bank. And then Will, who you had on here as a guest a few weeks ago, he's in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he's the director of basketball operations at Tulsa University, and they have a 2-year-old daughter. And Mary Kate, who's the youngest, she works in the business school in the marketing area for Washington University, and she and her husband live in the city, St. Louis, and they have a 1-year-old son. So I have 4 grandkids, and they're all doing great. And my kids are doing great. My wife's doing great. So everything's good for us.
Well, that's good to hear. I know a lot of people. I know you stay close to a lot of people still here in town. So your name gets brought up on occasion, usually in a good sense. But
Well, it is what it is. But I still have a lot of great memories and a lot of good friends in Effingham. We come down maybe a couple of times a year to visit, and so do our kids. So it's always great to, whether it be through Zoom or in person, it's good to reconnect with some of my friends.
Oh yeah, it's always good to touch base. And Dustin, my first job out of school, I was Dave Bartlett got me started. I was teaching at St. Anthony High School and coaching everything that he didn't want to deal with. So I had like fresh soft baseball. I started freshman basketball, I think, and then next year I was sophomore JV, and then I had I think boys track, maybe 1 or 2 years, and then girls track. Track was my specialty. That's where I was. That was my sweet spot.
That makes sense. Now,
But-
yeah, when we had Will on, he said that you're following the Tulsa basketball pretty closely. He says that you keep in touch with him pretty regularly on how that's going.
Well, one good thing about college basketball now, I mean, everybody has all their games on TV if you got the right equipment or right subscription to streaming stuff. So try to watch all their games, and that's one thing I really enjoy college basketball anyway. So it's kind of an added thing that I get to follow them. They've had a tough year, but they won last night versus Cincinnati, and they play at Central Florida, I think, on Monday. So yesterday was a good day for him. So we try to talk, not that he would listen to everything I say, but I always have opinions about the games that I watch. So yeah, we connect usually after each game.
I got a chance to see him. I've probably seen him 3 or 4 times on TV. They're probably split times I've seen him, and it was kind of funny. I think I saw him a couple of days before we had him on, and they were battling back, and they had a kid get a steal late and miss just a point blank money. And I said, "Well, I didn't think that happened at the collegiate level." He goes, "Oh yeah, those are missed here just as much as they're missed anywhere else." So.
Yeah. Well, they've only won 2 conference games. They're in the American Conference.
Right.
But they've lost a whole 7 or 8 games by less than 5 points in conference play. So, they're close. Of course, you know how that is. It doesn't count,
Yeah, close, but getting over the hump. So
correct.
That's
so yesterday was a good day for them.
So Dave, back when we started, I mean, I still remember, starting out coaching under you, because I think you'd actually been at Eastern a year getting your master's and then came back.
Right.
You'd been at St. Anthony, I think, under Les Stevens for a couple of years.
Correct. I came to St. Anthony in 1979, fall of 79. That kind of dates me a little bit, but I stayed there for, I think at the end of the 1984 school year, that's when we left, Martha and I, and we moved to Charleston. I went to grad school there for a year. And then at the end of that year, I got hired. I actually coached at Windsor for 1 year as head coach and helped with Eastern's basketball program. And at the end of that year, I got hired at St. Anthony as AD and head basketball coach and moved back to Effingham. Never thought we would come back after when we left, but that's just the way it worked out. And have no regrets. It was a great time living here, working with all the people at St. Anthony, including you. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of great memories. And stayed there till 1997, the second time around. And that's when we moved to Macomb.
Yeah. And, I guess, go ahead, Dustin.
Well, I was just gonna say, some of the best memories for St. Anthony boys sports kind of revolve around your time there. I mean, trips to state in basketball and baseball, and it took a long time after those for the school to get back there again. So for a long time, you were kind of you were the guy. You had taken them to that promised land, and they took quite a while for them to make those return trips. So kind of a name there.
Had a lot of great kids every year that I was at St. Anthony. So some of the same names are still around, just different generations. There had some great talent when I was there, and as you know, that's what it takes to win. Most of the times, you got to have the good athletes, and I had a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Now, you had 2 trips to state in baseball, right, Dave? I think 84 and 91.
Mm-hmm.
So that 84 group was probably like Craig Cabas and the Daters brothers and Dave McDevitt, that group.
Yep, all that bunch.
Pretty salty group of kids there.
Good group of kids, and I'd like to rattle off every single kid on the team, but time would not allow me to. But there's a lot of contributors. To that team, and the one in 1991, both in basketball and in baseball.
Right, because you had a double dip. I just remember, Tony Bryant and Matt Anderson was in that group. A ton of other kids, like you said. There's so many on there to talk about. So basketball, baseball. In 91, you actually went to state twice. Was there one that you were sweeter than the other of the two?
That's a good question. You mean particularly in 1991?
Yeah, just let's say in 91, for example, that year, since you went twice in the same year.
Well, I would say that as far as baseball is concerned, the two times that we made it to the state tournament equally were, it was exciting. When we went in 91, it was kind of special because we made it in basketball as well. And that's something that it was a great memory. It was basically the same kids that played on the basketball team, that played baseball, not all of them, but I would say 91 just because of the uniqueness of the situation with the basketball team making it state for the first time in a while.
Yeah, and like you said, it'd been since I think 79. Big thing, and I can still remember watching in 91 when you guys got out of the super sectional, just kind of a game. I know you were down and then made a great run in the second half, and Tony Bryant hit a bomb at the buzzer to send it into overtime, and you guys just kind of dominated overtime, pretty much. But
I think we were down 16 in the first half. We were down 16 in the first half, I think, and we just kind of gradually creep back. It wasn't all of a sudden. We just kind of got within 10, and we got it to 6, and then we got down to the bottom, the last 10 seconds of the game, and I have to admit that I called the wrong. I had a timeout left, and they were shooting free throws, and I didn't call a timeout. Not sure why I didn't, but we had a play that I called, and the play, once they started down the floor, I realized I called the wrong play because it was designed to go inside, but there were less than we were down 3. Luckily, Tony Bryant didn't listen to me. He popped out to the wing and shot a 3 and tied the game. So that's kind of the way it worked. I mean, it was. We had some breaks, and I think in some points we won despite some of the things that I did late in the game. But it's a great memory, that's for sure.
We'll blame that confusion on Dave Walton since he was your assistant.
Yeah, I think he told me to run that play.
But that group, like you said, you were down 16, and you just kind of chipped away. And the thing about that group, because I was with you, I think they were still sophomores, so I got to deal with those kids at sophomore level.
Right.
Those seniors. But you had the redheaded point guard that was a pretty tough customer.
Bart Willenberg, he was outstanding, and he played injured most of the year. He had a bad back, and played through it. Great leader, and really, he was just one of the great ones.
He had that desire and that will all the time on the floor. You just, he was going to keep fighting you.
He had some intangibles that were unique. He had a little edge to him, but he was a winner, a team player, and a winner. So, but there are a lot of other kids too that contributed, and Bart was something special, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was a heck of a group, and having Bart and Wilmer and Tony Bryant and I think they played sophomore with me as freshmen. I mean, they didn't play any freshman ball. We just moved them up, and it was a lot of fun, and you could see the potential and what was potentially there. But still, you never can say, "Oh, this team will go to state," because it's such a hard thing to do. Especially back in the day, I think when it was just 2 classes, you had so many people you had to get through to get there.
We had, of course, we'd always have to talk T-Town in our regional, and that tells you one thing right there about far as having an easy road. They were really good every year, and but there were other teams that throughout the regional and sectional. Flora was really good at the time. Newton was good. And then your draw in the super sectional, if you're fortunate to get out of there, could be anyone would be really good coming out of that area around the Metro East area. Southern Illinois. So it wasn't easy. And you're right. There's never any guarantees. You got to, even though having the talent puts you in a good spot, but you got to have some breaks. And that happened to us a few times. But all in all, we had a pretty good team.
Yeah, you really did. You had a good group, good leadership with that group. And like I said, you guys had pushed them and developed them. 2 years earlier in '89, I think it was. Yeah, is when we won a regional. I think that's the first regional St. Anthony had won in like 10 years. And I still remember that was such a lift.
Yeah.
And I know, here I was just, a young, stupid coach on the bench, but, you could see the relief in your eyes when we won that region. I mean, the way, you finally got that monkey off the school's back. And again,
it's because it's so difficult,
yes,
difficult way to go. And you're right. There were 2 classes then and a lot of good teams. And
and had a
you're
great,
right. 1989, we had a really nice team and we got out of the regional for the first time in several years. And you're right. It was kind of a relief to get the monkey off our back. And I really think that was the real change in the direction that the program went for us when that happened.
Yeah, I think so, because that, you had some good kids in that group. You talked about, Kirk Harkew's in that group, Todd Wegman, Tom Plotz, Tony Hack, those guys. And that group before, kind of with Tony Tegenkamp and that
Right.
group, and Chris Cavus and Greg, you kind of had a couple groups that I don't want to say changed the culture, but they kind of had different attitudes. They played with that chip on their shoulder a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. That group, even though we did not win a regional, I think we got into the finals and against T-Town and lost, but we really made some strides that year with that group, with Tony Tegenkamp
And Kurt Strohmeyer
was on that team. And so, yeah, we had a lot of momentum that started after about the third year I was here. During about the third year I was here, it took a while to get things going, but
had to get your recruits and your players in the pipeline. It takes
right. Yeah.
That group in '91, and you got up to state, and I know you guys didn't, you got beat in the first game and just kind of didn't play really your type of game. It just seemed, I don't know if the kids were caught up in the awe of being on that floor, but you didn't shoot it like you normally do, and you just kind of struggled a little bit.
Well, anything you say sounds like an excuse, but I mean, I
Right.
don't think we played a really good game, a really good team.
Yes.
They're really good. They kind of control the tempo of the game, and you're right, we just couldn't get it going. So don't know that I would do anything differently other than maybe I think we were so happy to make it to the state tournament. I thought that it would be best to keep the kid. We played at 12 o'clock, I believe, the first game in the state. And I thought it'd be a good idea to keep the kids at home the night before and have them then drive up the day of the game. Now, looking back, if I had to do it over again, I'd have gone up the day before just to get them out of town and practice somewhere up in the Champaign area because there was a lot of excitement in the school at the time, and a lot, not saying distractions, but it was a lot, so I'm not saying it would have made the difference in winning the game. If I had to do something different, that would be it. I would have gone up there the day before, probably with them. But anyway, it was still a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it was fun to watch you guys play there. A heck of a ball, and like I said, and then you guys kind of hit a low where you just didn't score, and they kept scoring. They kind of kept it slowed down a little bit. I know you guys like more of an up tempo, and but no, great ball game and great accomplishment. Like I said, you gotta be there. You made that step. we talked about, some of the people you had to deal with, and I know a lot of people always feel, oh, St. Anthony and T-Town, they hate each other. But you and Kenny had a pretty good relationship.
Well, we used to live pretty close together when he lived in Effingham, about down by close to where your mom and dad live, down by.
Yeah, we're by Community Park. Yeah,
Community Park. Yeah, but we had some really great games. Unfortunately, he won the majority of them, his teams against us. But always had a lot of respect for him, and it was always consider him a good friend. He was always the guy I really wanted to beat the most too. But a lot of respect, and that's the same way with the whole program at T-Town. I have a lot of respect for. I think I've been to a couple of. I know I've been to a couple of games at the new facility at St. Anthony to watch, and I saw T-Town play St. Anthony last year, and it hasn't changed. Still the same type of rivalry and a lot of spirit, and I miss those type of games. So, but yeah, I had a good relationship with Ken, as well as a lot of other coaches in the area.
Right.
A lot of good memories. And
well, and like I said, I got to see, you and Kenny talking about stuff together. I mean, I think even back in the day we rode together scouting with them. Sometime Crawford would get a school van and put lawn chairs in the back, and we'd ride somewhere to go scout or something. But that was the thing. I mean, the camaraderie, I think, between the coaches, and like you said, a lot of good coaches in the MTC and in the area at the time. And I think it was, that was a plus. You still see it today, maybe not as rich and as close as it was back then, but still a pretty good situation.
I agree, and I think that most coaches share the same problems. One might have a better team than the other, but you share difficulties, challenges. Being a head coach in any communities has those problems. So it's kind of a strong fraternity that you kind of stick together. It's like any other professional group. You need to network and get along with your competitors. And I was always happy to look back and realize I had those kind of relationships with some of the coaches.
With the coaches, and the other thing, you worked with, a couple people in the media quite a bit, presume, especially a guy that did a lot of writing in the newspaper, who kind of was his, I always loved the fact that I'd read quotes in the paper, even after games where Sam maybe and I didn't get a chance, he didn't get a chance to call me, or I didn't get a chance to call him. But he never made you look bad. He always made you look good when he would do that.
Yeah. I had a good relationship with Sam and Larry, your dad, the radio. I always had a good, trusting relationship, Sam. And you're right, he'd come up with quotes sometimes that I didn't recall saying, but they looked good, sounded good. So I never got really upset with any of them. But
yeah, he always made you look good when he was unable to get together with you. But he was never shy about giving you grief either.
Oh no, in person he would really let you have it. But yeah, you're right. He did a great job with the newspaper, and really miss him.
Now they always told me whenever I first started at the Daily News, first time he pulled me in his office, he was giving me grief about something, and after it was over, Millie pulled me aside and said, "Hey, he only talks to you like that if he likes you. If he doesn't like you, he won't even bother with you. You're not even worth the breath." So that's a good first experience. So I always.
Yeah, you're right, Dustin. I think that's a good example of how he was. It's true.
Yeah.
I would, I got younger days, got to ride to a lot of games with, Sam would tag along with Dad, they'd ride together. So I used to get quite an education going to some places, listening to those two. Dave, you mentioned St. Anthony's new gym, and here when we were getting our Snowmageddon the other day, Ann and I went up to the grade school to walk in the gym, to walk in the old golf, and there's been a lot of changes in there, but it's still, I could just kind of close my eyes and still hear the buzz and the roar going on in that building, because just a great facility to coach in, when you coach back in the day.
Well, it's a great facility. I've not seen it in a long time. Not seen any games since I left Effingham, but the floor there was as good as any floor that you would want to play on. It was nice and soft, and the facility was a great home court advantage. And I remember the year, I think it was in '91, we had the regional, we hosted the regional in T-Town, and we played each other. And of course, it was completely sold out. The tickets were reserved seating. It was completely sold out by old schools. And they ended up having somehow worked up a big screen television in the basement for people who couldn't get a seat. They could come in and watch the game on television. It was piped into the television downstairs. So that's how unique it was. And but it's one of those facilities that will always be recalled, remembered. It was really unique, a lot of fun to play in.
I'm sure Joe Griesbaum had something to do with that being piped downstairs.
I'm sure he did.
When Joe would run a hospitality room, not too many hospitality rooms in a region can you go to on a Friday night, and they have frog legs.
Yes.
So,
it was one of the best hospitality rooms ever. Unfortunately, I never got to use it because I was always so nervous getting ready for a game. I didn't have an appetite, but I've heard it's one of the best ones.
He knew how to take care of coaches and such. And some, I don't know if I was on the staff. I don't think I was back in the day when you'd have your old Charleston holiday tournament meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't you took Joe up as a special guest one time, didn't you?
Well, actually, when I was the head coach, I would take him up every year. He would go with me. And they got to know him pretty well over the years. But the year I was gone, Les Stevens was still the head coach. And Joe came with Les up to the holiday tournament, preseason banquet, or whatever you want to call it, where all the coaches attended at the country club in Charleston. And since I wasn't involved with the program, but I knew they were coming up, so I went over there, just drove over from Charleston. And Joe came with Les, and he was dressed up like a priest. And he played it just perfectly. And people up there who had known him already were going, "What's going on? What has happened?" But they used to joke around and have a good time up there during the holiday tournament. But that was one I'll never forget, where he came up dressed like a priest.
You had like Ed Butkovich and Crawford, and you had several coaches who could tell stories and maybe get out there a little bit in their stories.
Right. I think, I don't know if Ron Felling was still there or not, but I think he might have still been there. And there's plenty of stories to go about him too. So
and we always
that was a
heard
good time.
They were afraid to kind of go there with their stories with the priest at the table. And I can see Joe, I could see Joe playing that to the hill. So that's good.
He did it with a straight face. And he almost had me believing that something was going on.
He thought he'd had a life-changing experience when you left. Oh my goodness. That's always a good story. Dave Wolfman and I, we chuckle about that because at our Christmas tournament here, people always say, "Hey, why don't we get all the well, we're from all over the state. We'd have to do it in the Zoom." And and then we'd have a Joe Griesbaum situation at some point. And we'd have to.
I actually think that's a good thing to have those type of things, but probably right now, the way things have been, probably is not a good thing to do with the pandemic. And maybe in a couple of years, we would do something like that in Macomb for our tournament, but probably not good timing right now.
Yeah, it's good. You're going to have to gradually build back up to those things, I think. But
Correct.
we'll get there eventually, I hope.
Yeah, I agree.
So I wanted to ask before and you let us know, I know we're trying not to keep you for too long, but going from a school like St. Anthony, a pretty small, tight knit type of school, not a lot of numbers there. Everybody knows everybody. Then to shift over to Macomb, which is a much larger district. Pretty big culture shock with that, or was it something that you felt pretty comfortable with?
Well, actually, I grew up in Rushville, Illinois, which is
Okay.
about 25 miles south of Macomb.
Okay.
And so as a kid growing up, I was very familiar with Macomb.
Yeah.
Spent some
Okay.
time there growing up, played American Legion baseball there. And so I kind of knew people in Macomb. So it was not, for me personally, it was not a big culture shock because I had some knowledge of it. But for the rest of our family, I think it was a little bit. It's a great community. The school district is, I think the high school in Macomb now has a little bit over 600 kids. It's it's a diverse community, even though it's a small town, and it's a university community. It's where Western Illinois University is, and that's the largest employer in Macomb, which shouldn't be a surprise. So very diverse school district, but it's a very good school district. So it was a good change for me and for us. I think that I spent, looking back on St. Anthony, I think I held every job at some point during my stay there, except I was never pastor. I was the principal, assistant principal, athletic director. I taught, I coached a variety of sports. I think it was just time for me for a new challenge and a new direction. And I really have a lot of fond memories of St. Anthony and the community of Effingham. But it was a good move for all of us to make a change and try something different.
Well, Mike, what else you got? We promised Dave we wouldn't keep him too
Well,
long.
we promised Martha we'd let Dave get out of here since he's got some honeydews to get ready before the Super Bowl. So I got to get your Super Bowl pick today, Dave. Who's it going to be?
I think the Rams are the best team, but I'm hoping that Cincinnati wins.
Yeah, I think I got a feeling that's like just how most of the country that doesn't have a rooting interest in this game feels, right? I mean, it's just Cincinnati.
Well,
if you're close to St. Louis at all, I think that's your underlying feeling.
Well, if you live in Macomb, that's the underlying feeling, because the Rams used to have their training camp here, which was a great thing for Macomb back when the St. Louis Rams had Warner and they won the Super Bowl. And this is in Macomb is where they had their training camp, and that was a great deal for the community here. And when they left and moved, that was a sad thing for our community, that's for sure.
Well, one of your former baseball players is at the Super Bowl today. Chris Kester, the general, is at the Super Bowl.
Really?
He's an ardent hater of Stan Kroenke, but he's still a pretty good Rams fan. He went down to Tampa, and then he ended up he and Dana ended up going out this last couple of days to LA. So I've been following him on social media, his pictures, and he's pretty excited.
Yeah, Chris was a really good player for me in baseball. Played
second baseman, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yes, he was a very good player. I haven't seen him for a long time, but I'm sure he hasn't changed too much. That's for sure.
No, he hasn't. He's very involved with our Christmas tournament committee, and we get to spend a lot of time in a short period of time together as we're pulling all the strings to pull that off. But no, good thing, and he's done a lot of things for youth baseball here, travel baseball, and such in this area as well.
Yeah, and big with the sports backers at Effingham High School now too. I mean, I'm going to guess. I don't know exactly how it all came together with the turf for the football field, but I'm going to guess that he was back there pulling some strings somewhere in that whole arrangement. So
that's what it takes. You need to have people that are involved in any community for things like that. And that's good to hear that he's doing that.
Yeah, he is. So, well, David, we'll let you go. I'm sure Martha's got, your Sunday list of honeydews for you to get done. And, you got to get those done in time to watch the Super Bowl. And I know you're probably waiting for the halftime show as your highlight of the day.
Yeah, it always is, that's for sure.
All right.
I just wanted to say reiterate what great memories I have of Effingham. Still maintain a lot of good relationships, friendships. And I talked a little bit about state tournament things for basketball and baseball, but all the former students and faculty members that I work with, administration, just a lot of great memories. And we always talk about all the good times. And I just want to thank everyone that I ran across with or had relationships with in Effingham.
Well, and I know, David, that you're, still to this day, very highly thought of by a lot of people. And, I was talking to Craig Cabas the other day, and I said I was going to have you on. He kind of chuckled. He said, "Oh, I'll have to listen to that one."
Yeah.
Well, he's one I really didn't talk about very much. I mean, he was outstanding student and athlete at St. Anthony, and he made me look pretty good at times when he was catching and pitching for us.
He could do that.
Yes, he could do it.
He lives about 100 yards away from me. I'll make sure he knows that he'll have to watch this episode.
Give him my best.
I will do that.
All right.
Dustin, thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. Again, people love it when we have guests, and I'm going to guess that we're going to get a lot of positive feedback. So we appreciate you taking the time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and have to do this again sometime.
Let me know.
All right. Thank you, David. We'll see you, bud.
Mike, Dustin, thanks a lot. Take care.
Take it easy.
Yeah. That
was Dave Bartlett. Big name in the St. Anthony community, and the guy that we had more than one person tell us we needed to have on the show at some point. So especially after
he's always been on the initial list. It's not like people say, "Oh, look, we mentioned something and look who they got." No, we've got a very broad, long list of people on there. It's just, finding time and making them fit.
Well, that's the thing about sports in this area, the Effingham area, is that there's no shortage of people who have been important and who are accessible and would be willing to do a thing like this. And so that's makes it easy for us, And
as a kid right out of college at Eastern and getting hired as a teacher and a coach at St. Anthony and coaching 3 sports, and I think taking home $900 a month, Dave was very good person to work with when I started my career. He was understanding of when I would do something stupid, which, happened, that's the way it was. But learned a lot, learned so much from him, really did. And I think one of the best things I learned was how he dealt with people outside of your coaches, we mentioned Joe Griesbaum, who was very involved in the Booster Club, and they had a tremendous relationship. And, he was very involved with what went on and influential there, and the media. He had a great relationship with Dad and Sam Rickelman. And, he'd come back from being at the Daily News, and he said, "I walked into Sam's office. I said 4 words in the 30 minutes I was there. I just listened." And, Sam would just tell you everything that was wrong with you as a coach, as an individual. And then he'd laugh about it, But that's the thing. They've kind of showed me how you deal with other factions outside of just your players. Yeah. And the relationship you have with other teachers and with parents. And okay, here's a disgruntled parent. How do you do? And it was really, and you address it.
Yeah,
And, but
I
yeah,
don't think you're gonna find a successful high school coach who doesn't have a mentor, or a handful of mentors like that, whether it be someone they coached under for a while or another coach in another sport at the same school that kind of says, here's what you need to know about this place. Or if it's, a lot of times it's a parent who coached also, and that's probably the reason that you got into it in the first place, is because you watched your dad or your mom coach when you were a kid. So yeah, I think you got to have a person like that if you really want to be able to have your own success. So.
yeah, I know. Like I said, I know the times I was under Dave for 4 years. I think Dave Waltman followed me and was under for probably a little longer time. And I know he was very influential to Dave as well. And so, yeah, just, like I said, one of the good guys in the business of working with kids.
So, Mike, here's what we got. There's been a lot of games played this week, of course. Also, the pairings for boys basketball regionals came out, so we need to talk about that. So we can kind of take a quick look at, I think, first what happened around the area recently. I wanted to give a quick shout out. We don't really, obviously, we spend our time talking about high school sports, but we should probably at least throw a little shout out to the T-Town 7th grade boys. I saw that they finished. They went to state as T-Town junior high basketball teams tend to do. They went to state and got a 4th place finish, and so thought we should bring that up. And then
Unfortunately for Coach Smith, he does not get to change his license plate, but just another trip. And Doug does a great job with them. I know St. Anthony's 7th graders went to state. They lost their first game. 8th grade wise, St. Anthony won their first game, lost their second. To Topless won both games Saturday. So now the way you play 2 on a Saturday, so they will play for a state championship Thursday night, maybe, I think is when they do that.
Thursday in Washington, so over toward Peoria.
Well, they're playing at Tolona.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's at Tolona.
Oh, they play Washington. That's right.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they play Washington. And the thing is, I was kind of following scores on the weekend. Tolona's first round game, they scored 70 some points or 70, which is unheard of in junior high. And then T-Town ended up beating them in overtime. And we should mention, Sacred Heart's 7th graders went to state also. I think they lost their first game at state. So, in the immediate area, some really good things there. And we'll have to see, those are the feeders. Those are the feeders.
Well, I think that's what, that's the thing that T-Town's always had going for it too. You've always had good coaches and good athletes at the high school level, of course, but there's so much consistency at the junior high level. The kids are being taught the things they need to know then. And so then in high school, and that you don't have to figure out the little stuff. You don't have to teach them how to play basketball. They already know, they already know what's expected of them. They know what they're going to run. It's just about, figuring out who does what and, working on the finer points.
That's probably, people will say, what's the secret? Probably for Topless basketball in the last 20 some years, one of the biggest factors has been the continuity and the communication between, back in the day, Ken Crawford and his junior high coaches. I think maybe before Kent, it may have been Mick Daters, but they run the same thing. Kenny says, I want these kids to know how to play man-to-man defense. They're taught how to do that at the junior high. There's autonomy. Kent and Doug can do what they want, and now, they're affiliated with Chet, but it's a pipeline. We really want to see these base things taught. So when a kid walks in the gym as a freshman in the summer to open gym or whatever, he's not in awe. He knows, okay, ball you man drill. I got a pretty good idea what I'm going to do. Just things like that. And Unfortunately, that is not the case, probably with the majority of the schools
No.
in the state of Illinois, to be honest.
Yeah, no,
I know coaches who are not fans of their junior high coaches because they won't run the things they want them to run. It was always, don't get sold on playing 5 kids at the 7th grade level, because let's face it, the 7th grader who may be your best player is now shaving. And by the time he's a junior in high school, he's still 5'10",
yeah,
and all he can do is post up and rebound because he's the biggest, strongest kid on the floor. You got to give a lot of kids a chance to play. And I know, B games. You take Effingham Central, for example. I know at times there's been people trying to get intramural. Just get more kids the chance to play, that you're not done as a 6th grader. And, I have a very good friend of mine who didn't play in high school. And all of a sudden, as a senior, he was 6'7" and could play, and was not allowed to go out then because he hadn't played throughout, but he was also 5'10". He grew 5 or 6 inches in like a year. But you've got to keep kids involved. And then the junior high coaches, you got to be part. It's a feeder. Yeah, great when junior high teams go to state. That's awesome. But teach kids how to play at that level.
yeah, making sure that you continue to, I think you mentioned interest level, and that's a big thing. Is like kids don't all mature, obviously, on the same clock. So you run kids off of the sport before they've even had a chance to grow into their bodies, and you're poorer for that once that class is in, their 11th and 12th graders. You could have used them, right? And again, just having a consistent feeder, I've seen some good examples of that. T-Town's obviously a good one. I know at Neoga, like Seth James coaches the junior high kids, and then he sits on the bench for the high school, right? He's the JV coach. And so he and Kim Romack know, and Kim goes down and sits with him on the junior high, right? Like that's a lot of time. Like obviously it's a big investment also.
Now girls are different because their seasons don't overlap as much. You
It's
couldn't
true.
really do that in the boys.
And,
But it doesn't hurt as a head coach to show up at a practice or make sure you're at games, watching a game here and there when you can. And so those kids, I can remember when I was coaching at St. Anthony, a group that went to state coming into the locker room after the game, and and was told after the fact that the kids appreciated that. But it's just it's a smooth program when it works well and when everyone gets together, and it only benefits everybody, but it's very beneficial at the high school level.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's easier said than done in a lot of districts too, because teachers come and go, right? Like, I mean, especially at smaller districts, you'll have people who they'll take a teaching job and they'll take on a coaching job because that's what they needed to do to get the teaching job. And then their aspirations are not in that district. That's not where they want to end up. So you're going to have where you just can't make it work the way T-Town does it. I mean, that's the
I mean, they've been lucky, like I said, Kent's been there a long time, Doug's been there a long time at the 7th grade level. And knowing them both well, they do a good job. They really do. They get as many, they play kids, and they're also competitive. When it's time for postseason, they're ready to roll.
Yep. Got to have that balance. You're mostly teaching, but learning how to win is it's a thing that matters, but can't be the primary.
Right.
All right. So as far as high school stuff we could talk about, one thing I really wanted to touch on was yesterday they did that NTC CIC shootout over in Mowequa, and a lot of our National Trail boys schools went over and participated and performed well. You had Altamont getting a win over Macon Meridian, which they beat Macon Meridian 58-39, and that's a team that's the team that won the Vandalia tournament, correct?
No, they got second Vandalia.
They got second. Okay, they
The,
were
the size of victory surprised me a little bit.
yeah.
I kind of Macon Meridian. I kind of thought that subsectional that Tuscola and Windsor Stew would be the favorites coming out of that area. I kind of forgotten about Macon Meridian a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's an impressive win for Altamont this time of the season.
Yeah, and impressive also would be Windsor Stew Straws beating Tuscola 54-43. Windsor Stew Straws, they had a nice win over Pana recently. I mean, this is a quality basketball team. It bears repeating. They've got, and the thing is they can beat you with a lot of different guys. Like they've got a lot of different scoring options, and so with the regional coming up before long, that's a statement win for Windsor Stew Straws to beat Tuscola by double digits.
Yeah. And seeing them at the NTCs, first time I saw them live. I saw them on video, streaming a couple games, but to see them live on the floor, very impressive group. And Bob is so low key with them. I mean, I told him, I said, Bob, I want to go there and poke you, make sure you are awake. But he trusts his kids. No, it was really, really good. And them beating Tuscola, that's a feather in the cap for the conference. It really is. And Altamont's win. I was surprised that North Clay got beat by Shelbyville.
That's where I was going to go next. I don't know. I haven't seen a box score from it yet, so I don't know.
Right. I haven't either.
If North Clay possibly was missing somebody, but Shelbyville has lost to a number of NTC schools this year over the course of the season, and not always real close games either. So that one caught me a little off guard, just because I think North Clay, they pulled like a 5 or a 6 seed on their side of the sectional, and that's dangerous. That's a dangerous one.
Well, and here comes that 6-7 matchup in the regional.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Them and Diedrich. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But that's just like at the NTC.
There's one regional feeding into the St. Anthony sectional. Like anyone who ended up there has got to be feeling like, what did I do wrong? What did I do to end up here?
That's the old days at Flora when all 7 teams had 20 wins. How is this possible?
St. Ella Brownstown got a win over Sullivan. Neoga lost to Warrensburg Latham, but only by 10. And I think that's, Neoga's got
Warrensburg Latham beat T-Town in overtime earlier in the year.
So, that's a good team. CHBC played Arthur Lovington, Atwood Hammond close, lost 52-45. And Diedrich beat Central A&M. They're quite a bit a ways down from where they were in some of their more recent power years, but Diedrich thumped them 59-25. So,
good day for the NTC.
Yeah, no, and the NTC has represented itself well. I had seen where their non-conference win percentage was 62 or 63, something like that. And the point that the person who was sharing that was making was, that this is one of the small schools conferences in the state that has comported itself as well as any, right? Like they really have gone outside their conference and represented it very well this year.
Yeah, well, you've got wins against Tuscola, Macon Meridian, Champaign Centennial. They've played tough schedules outside. But yeah, that was a good day for them. And then
St. Anthony got a win yesterday too.
St. Anthony got a win over Mattoon. And now I haven't seen a box on that either. I just saw the score.
Well, I was there, so
that's right. You were doing radio. Sam Bradbury's back playing again.
And Sam Bradbury at times was dominating in that game. Now I think the minutes must be limited. Okay. Like I think that they can't play him 32 minutes. And
I know 2 weeks ago, I talked to Ryan Gear briefly, and we texted back and forth when I saw that Sam was back playing. And he said he was on a limited, he was on a load. We'll use the term, the load management. No, but he was going to be limited in his minutes, health reasons wise, obviously. But it's just good to see him back playing. And it's good that I saw he was their leading scorer.
Yeah,
so it's good to see that he, was kind of picking up where he left off.
They made concerted efforts to get him the ball early, like at the onset of the game. And that was a tight game for a while. Then St. Anthony led by 16 at halftime, and Matt Toon this was at the Totopolis shootout, by the way, the T-Town shootout. We had T-Town, St. Anthony, Effingham all playing in that. Matt Toon couldn't buy a three-pointer, and they also couldn't stop shooting them in the second quarter. Like, that's all they did was shoot threes, couldn't make any of them. So St. Anthony takes 16-point lead at halftime, and you're thinking, they're 27-11 was the score, and you're just thinking, okay, this is Matt Toon's day. But then next thing you know, you come in the third quarter and Matt Toon is leading by a point. They scored 16 straight points themselves, okay? And all of a sudden, St. Anthony's down. But then, they got some contributions from some guys that don't always score a bunch of points. You had Griffin Sahi make 5 3-pointers in that game, most of them in the second half. And also a guy who really stepped up when they needed him to was Colin Westendorf. The kid made some it was Willenberg. It was Willenberg, Jonathan Willenberg, that made the threes, right? I'm looking up the
Well, I saw Westendorf on the listed for getting so many points.
13. Okay, it was Westendorf. See, I had 13 in my head. Was it number 13 or was it 13 points? It was Westendorf, 13 points.
Yeah, and he can shoot the 3-ball. I've seen him a little bit.
Yeah, and when I interviewed Cody after the game, Cody Ranker, the St. Anthony coach, and I said, it's good experience for you, right? Just to come out of that game with a win, even though you don't like coughing up a 16-point lead, right? Like it shows you a little bit about what your kids are made of, that once they blew that lead, that they didn't just pack up the tent and say, well, I guess we lost this one. And then
right.
He agreed with that, right? Like you got to show what you're made of at some points. And I think that's a good win to get just because of the way it went down this close to regionals. So, Effingham lost. They played Champaign Centennial and had a lead after 3 quarters, and ended up losing that game 78-61. Now they were ahead 42 to
39.
42-39 going into the fourth quarter, and Centennial scored 39 points in the fourth quarter. And the thing is,
I thought it was a miss when I saw it on Twitter. As we were out of town, I'm thinking, all right, Dustin or Greg got fat thumbs. It's not 71 or whatever. They've given them 10 too many points because they scored 39. St. Anthony scored 19. That's 58 points in the quarter, Dustin.
Yeah.
Were you on play-by-play or were you on the book?
I was doing color for that game.
So you had writer's cramp.
Yeah, it was tough because Trey Warren, who ended up scoring like 34 points for Centennial, he scored at least 20 of them in the fourth quarter. He couldn't miss. Centennial had shown some full court pressure throughout the game. Effingham dealt with it pretty well in the first half and even got some pretty easy looks out of it. But then in the second half, for whatever reason, turnovers just started, especially in that fourth quarter. And, it was just everything going wrong all at once type of deal. Turnovers, a hot team that couldn't miss a shot. And 39 points a quarter. And the thing is, man, we talk about Effingham's problem this year has been scoring points, right? And then they put a 61 spot on the board. Yeah. And you think, well, they ought to, finally. And unfortunately couldn't get a win. And that's tough. I don't want to hammer on them. You know what I'm saying? They continue to play hard. Braden Powles is back, by the way. He played.
Yeah, I saw that.
He played at Lincoln Friday night, and they got beat by Lincoln 42-29 Friday night as well. but it's good for him. Where Jet Volpe is shooting around and stuff between games. So, I think Greg talked to him. Jet hopes that he gets a chance to play again this year, and we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But Powell's looked, he was, getting after it. So it was good to see him back on the floor. Just a tough loss. But then T-Town, they played Paxton Buckley Loda, and that's a team. PBL was like 14-11 coming into this game. So not a bad team by any means, but and Chet Reeder said it after the game, like, this is about as good as he's seen his team play all year long. 55-20. There was a running clock in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was Shoes they're just playing hard. I don't know how else to say it. They defended hard, and I don't think Paxton really knew how to deal with it. And to compound it, like, they're playing hard but not fouling, right? Didn't get called.
That's the thing. People will watch a T-Town game and say, oh my God, are these refs named Shoemaker and Nieberge? They're not getting fouls called on them. Generally, T-Town kids aren't ones to do a lot of reaching.
No, that's the thing.
But defensively, and that's the thing, and we've talked before, at times they've struggled scoring. But as you go into the postseason, your defense will keep you in every game. I mean, unless they run up against a Simeon. That's great. But what I'm saying is, I guess Whitney Young was the Chicago Public League champion last night, so it'd be them. But their defense will keep them in so many games. And that's the thing. They just have to be patient, and you don't want to draw them in the postseason, just simply because your kids, especially if you're haven't played them. Oh, I've seen them on tape. No, if you haven't played them and turned and caught a pass and squared up, and all of a sudden there's Mitch Althoff or
some kid with a 7-foot wingspan, like, bearing down on you.
Max Nieberge just, staring you eye to eye. And you're like, wait a minute, what's,
Yeah.
And you don't experience that. And like I said, I think that's a thing that can help them a lot in the postseason. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, they do two things that don't show up in the box score. One of them is defending the way you're talking about, just getting to the spot. Being at the spot and being able to cut you off without reaching. Okay, there's one. Like, that's just athleticism and hard work. But then also, this team moves the ball well offensively too. Like, sometimes the shots fall, sometimes they don't. But one thing they do is find the open shooter, because they're moving the ball around faster than the defense can keep up with. And they skip. They like to skip it. They like to throw the cross court pass, but they do it. They're smart about it, and they're skilled at it. And plus, they can throw it up in the air, and they can leap and get it. Again, some of that comes down to just athleticism, and again, having.
Well, they're not selfish offensively, and I think at times maybe Chet would like to see Brendan be a little selfish, but they're not. They're not selfish offensively. Sometimes to a fault. Sometimes you'll see kids pass up good open looks. I mean, a wide open three at the top of the key, depending on where it is in the possession, is not always a good open look. But there's times it is, and I think sometimes they'll have kids pass up some looks. But again, I like the way they guard. I'm excited about postseason for our area. I really am.
Yeah, I think T-Town is, they're hitting their stride pretty well. They're 21-7 now, I believe. And so, I guess we could kind of segue into that boys postseason, because we're already at like an hour here. So, the girls postseason got started yesterday, Saturday, but it was mostly preliminary games, and there were no real big surprises there. So kind of like, in terms of analysis of the girls postseason, nothing that we said last week has really changed.
This will be the big week, because now I saw some finals are Thursday, some are Friday.
That is interesting, and that kind of makes.
Because the boys, the boys are.
I don't have any idea why that is. I mean, I don't really know why they started all the regionals the same week either. I haven't heard of the logic behind that. It really.
I think the fact is, the U of I doesn't want to give up the assembly hall for 4 weeks, and they're
Yeah.
willing to give it up for 2. So they're going to try it. The biggest problem, and are you going to share the boys stuff on your screen? Mr. White,
Yeah,
that's perfect. How are you, sir?
I don't know. I don't know who let this guy up here, but anyway,
That's all right.
as long as he's quiet, we're fine. Yeah, I don't know. But it really, from the broadcasting perspective, makes things interesting for us. Because,
Well, but here's the biggest problem. My understanding is every boys regional in 2 weeks, semifinal is on Wednesday night.
yeah, we're just gonna.
Okay.
I mean,
where are you getting the officials?
well, that's the question that a lot of people have brought up to us. Is that,
Because you have one game of a semifinal at Patoka and one at Diedrich. So it's not like you're playing them in the same location and you can maybe convince guys to pull a doubleheader. You will have officials doing regional semifinal games and regional final games, probably, that are going to be at the deep end of the pool.
yeah, and yeah, I don't.
And we have a shortage of officials. That's why I think this is not the greatest bit of planning by the IHSA. I really don't. But we'll see. And they hire the officials. So it's not on the school districts to be beating the bushes to get officials. For regional semifinals and for the regionals, that's IHSA.
Yeah, I mean, I
Because
guess
you usually have a crew of 3 guys doing a regional, maybe 4. And that's it. Now they're all playing the same nights. It'll be interesting.
so. Let's do this. I think I'll work in reverse order on
All right.
On this. I think I'll start with the 3A boys. I'm gonna share my screen here
All right.
so everyone can see what we're talking about. Here we go. You see that?
All right. I got it. You're
So
good.
we'll start with 3A. Effingham, they're going to have to play Olney in their first game, and that's at Olney. And that's an interesting matchup to me because I saw Effingham play Olney earlier this season. And listen, I know Olney is
Ball game.
Olney's undefeated, but Effingham gave them all they wanted, and for my money, probably should have won that ball game. So that's interesting. That's an
Coach
interesting draw.
Flanagan's leading a charmed life because Friday night they beat Newton by 2 or by 1, and Newton had a look at the buzzer, pretty good look. And they've beaten Effingham in a tight game late, St. Anthony in a tight game late.
Yep.
So it's a case where at some point that coin's not going to land heads every time.
I mean,
And Rob's one of the best coaches in the area. No, I mean, he does an incredible job, but they've just kept surviving.
yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I think Effingham could. I have said this about Effingham all year long. Like they are capable on any given night of
Sure
giving
they are.
anybody a game. So the record's not great, but they can. We'll see. That's, of course, now next week is still regular season for the boys. Next
Right.
week is still regular season for the boys, but then their regionals will begin the following week. So there's that. 2A, there's T-Town.
Yeah, they go to Allah.
Atwood, Arthur Lovington, Atwood Hammond. A little bit of a trip, but you look at the teams in there, and you would have to think that
Potentially, you're going to have the rubber match game
Yep.
at Allah.
yep. So T-Town lost to Newton in the Christmas tournament, but then turned around and beat them.
Lost
what?
at T-Town and then
Yeah.
won at Newton. So both teams are now on a foreign floor. They both won on the opposing team's floor. It'll be interesting. That'll be a great ball game.
Yeah, I mean that's the way you probably envision it going. Now, obviously, Newton's going to have to play Paris in the second game, one would think.
Sure.
I mean, Paris is kind of having a so-so season, but it's a team that's in your conference. They're familiar with you, so there's the potential for
Right.
strange.
I think Newton's got 2 wins against them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of trying to play devil's advocate. You never
Oh, I
want to.
know.
you never want to count someone else's chickens before they hatch.
Yeah, no, I think there's an example right there where you're looking at, you assume that's a pretty good matchup.
T-Town, I feel like it's a good draw for the shoes just in terms of trying to get to a sectional. I mean, you look at how they rate there, and you feel like they've got a pretty solid chance. But Newton's going to have something to say about it.
Well, you got Fairfield and Mount Carmel. I mean, really, your top four were Fairfield or T-Town, Fairfield, Mount Carmel, and Newton. So you're split up there.
Yep.
Robinson's the 5 of the group, and they're not with you. They're a host. So
yeah,
you got to like the fact that you 5 and 6 are in another location.
And you look elsewhere in that sectional. And again, I just want to reiterate, Pana drew a number 1 seed on their side of the sectional. So that Winter Stu Straw's got to win over that team. So I just want to again point out how good of a win that is for the Hatchets.
Pana and Salem. I mean, again, you look at that. Vandalia's up and down, but Pana Salem. Salem maybe has played a tougher schedule, so it is what it is. I'm just surprised that sectional's at Flora. Years ago, they had a sectional at Flora, and it just seemed like they were really struggling for seating.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love Flora's gym. Okay,
it's a great gym.
I love it. Yeah, you're right. It's intimate, I guess you could say, once you start trying to pack people in there.
I would probably put the regional at Flora and a sectional at Robinson. I think Robinson's gym is more suited to hold more people. But again, the IHSA, I must have missed that email when they asked me. So
I love going to do games at Florida. It's been a minute, but it's a
gym.
It's a cool one of those older gyms. If they're building them now, they never build it that way again, right?
Nope.
Nope. But it's there and it's nice. And plus, the radio boys from Flora, it's always fun to cross paths with them too. There's always a new story to hear, and lots of friendly conversation. And
there is.
There was one time where we even had to borrow their equipment. One time, as I remember, we had a problem with the station cell phone or something, and they were nice enough to let us use their mixer. So some good guys there. Good guys. We ran into them when Flora's boys were playing at St. Anthony a couple of weeks ago, and got a chance to catch up. So that was good. Okay, 1A, scrolling up. This is, of course, where most of our local teams are fitting in.
All right, now when you do 1A, I want you to scroll down further. I want you to go past. I want to show you something.
Okay, where am I going?
Going to Chicagoland.
Okay.
Okay.
Give me the name of a school I'm looking for here.
Horizon Southwest from our Christmas tournament.
Okay. That's actually.
They're right.
Here we go.
They are a 2 seed.
Now explain that to me, because obviously they struggle a little bit at the Christmas tournament, but they're
in the Chicago White Division, which is, in the public league, that's the really weak division. I've already had that pointed out to me. I saw it when this came out. I think they're above 500. I'd have to check with my friend Aaron Britton on that. I think they're above 500, but they have they play in a weak division. A lot of these charter schools that aren't loaded with talent. So there's your 16th place team in your Christmas tournament. And they have a 2 seed in a regional. So I just wanted to point that out.
And then the one, of course, that we're interested in, St. Anthony's going to host the sectional. So you look at the feeders for it. We don't really have any local schools in Arcola, but Tuscola is they drew one of the number 1 seeds in this sectional on their half of it. And
they're probably considered a heavy favorite.
Although, as mentioned, we watched Windsor Stu Straws get a win.
Yep.
just this weekend over them, which
Yep.
is interesting because Windsor Stew Straws, of course, is hosting its own regional in this one. But I want to skip past that one for a second. I want to start with Diederich, because
Ooh,
anyone who ended up in this Diederich regional has got to be looking at that field and just saying, good God, what did I do to deserve
what did we do? I mean, when you look at that regional, Altamont's your top seed.
Uh-huh.
Okay. They've earned that with what they've done.
Yeah, 21 wins, I think, 21 or 22 now, maybe.
South Central is your second seed there. And South Central finished what, 5th in the NTC?
I could tell you exactly what they did. They're 4-3.
Well, in the tournament. I'm saying in the tournament.
Oh, in the tournament, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. South Central won the consolation over.
Okay, they won the consolation. So really, that's your 5th place team, I guess is how you would say that.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
And then you've got Sisney, who's pretty good.
Sisney is good. They beat Mount Carmel this year, which was a good win for them. I actually saw Sisney play the first week of the season. A lot could change between now and then, but it did strike me as this is not your typical Sisney team. So
yeah, and then you look at that quote regional, your 4th and 5th seed in the regional. Now I know that's the numbers are different on the screen because that's the complex of the two regionals combined. Yes. But in that location at Diederich, your 4 and 5 are North Clay and Diederich, who either one can win that region.
Yeah, I mean, Altamont's going
to. They're the 4th and 5th seed in the regional. If
Altamont takes care of CHBC, takes care of business in that first game, they're going to have to turn around and play a team who
either has beaten them or lost to them. By what? I did that game at Diederich, lost to him by 1 or 2.
Yeah. So that's just a tough draw. I mean,
yeah, that's, Johnny Nieberge's the #1 seed in the complex. Hey, Johnny, thanks for coming. Oh, by the way, here's your 2nd round game.
Yeah,
and then you get by that. Now you've got either probably a South Central or a Sisney. St. Elmo Brownstown, South Central, that'd be a good ball game.
St. Elmo Brownstown has beaten some good teams this year, I mean, but yeah, you would think that it's going to be one of those two teams that comes out of it. I know Red Hill's had a tough year, and I don't think Red Hill's had the kind of year where they should be seated ahead of St. Elmo Brownstown. That's just my
probably not.
I guess it doesn't matter much.
Well, these seedings, it's all done online now, so you're not sitting there looking at Coach eye to eye.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Up north in 1A, probably the state champion, Yorkville Christian, a private school up north, 1A, was voted. Some coaches voted them 5th or 6th seed in the regional. And Dustin, I'll give you the field right now on pizza from either Joe's or Pizza Man, and I'll take Yorkville Christian, and I'll give you the field.
There's obviously always been some gamesmanship, with this.
Yes, there has been.
But it's a lot. Your point stands that it's a lot easier to do when you don't have to sit in a room with the rest of the people and justify it, because there isn't that Ken Crawford that's just waiting to bust your chops about it, right?
Kenny wouldn't do that.
We have talked about it on this very show about how he would do just that.
That's when a coach was talking about all the injury woes they dealt with. So that's different.
Okay.
But no, it is. When you've got to sit there and see, I can remember the NTC seating when we'd have to, they'd write them. They had the board, before you had computers, you had the big white erase board with every school, and you'd write the seeds down, and Todd Arnold would tally them up. But you're doing it there in person, and you go,
yeah.
He seeded me 4th. Everyone else seeded me 2nd. I'll remember that. Coaches do. I'm sorry.
It happens, and it's.
Now, I think these are made public to the coaches. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to a coach about the seeding. I don't know if they get to see the voting. I would assume it's made public.
All I know is that, and listen, if and when St. Anthony wins a regional, I don't say this, I don't want to take anything away from them, because winning a regional is winning a regional. Okay. You take that plaque and 5, 10, 20 years from now, nobody cares who you played. But
Right.
they got, I think I'm not, am I saying anything outlandish to say that going down to Patoka, aside from having to make the trip for them, is a pretty, I mean, they'll take that trade-off, right? Having to make potentially 3 trips down to Patoka to get a
You know, you're going to have to play
I don't know
eventually,
anything about
probably.
Carlisle.
You're either going to probably face a Carlisle or Nokomis. Carlisle, Andy Palmer, been there a long time, a really good coach. Nokomis, it's a whole new regime there. They're still have Nokomis on their shirt. So, but I guarantee you, Cody Rinker would not say, okay, you know what? Take Bridgeport to Patoka and we'll take Bridgeport's spot. No, he was not
complaining about missing
complaining about it. Nope, not
missing
complaining
out
at
on
all.
North Clay and Dieterich and
Now, Coach Nieberge, Coach Zink, Coach Doring, yeah, maybe they got it. But I'm just saying that's, yeah. And the good thing is you're going to have some pretty good crowds at Dietrich. God, that Wednesday night doubleheader, there's not enough seats in that gym, Dustin. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
Dieterich's another. It's not a huge gym. I mean, it's they can put
not for the potential of the doubleheader they're going to have.
They can put a few people up on that balcony if they need to. I've seen that done in the past, but it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. So then you move up here to these other 2 regionals.
Yeah, the one we did Tuscola, the Windsor,
we don't have much.
Windsor Stew Straws. I really like Stew, but I want to tell you something. I'm surprised. Well, the Casey Cumberland, I thought those would be flip-flopped. Casey struggled early. Coach Brandon's really good coach, but they were struggling. They didn't have some kids. I think they had some kids move. Macon Meridian, like I said, they've just been humbled by Altamont. I'm just gonna, this would be one say, oh, save the tape, and I will not be shocked if you don't. I expect an NTC team to be playing at Carbondale. How's that?
I think that's fair. I mean, first of all, it's a pretty good chance to have 3 NTC teams in the same sectional.
And I had a person tell me they think a particular NTC team will be at state.
Okay.
And they named the team individually. I'll tell you off camera.
We don't want to jinx anybody.
No, I don't want to jinx anybody. And this is a person who knows basketball. This isn't, but I was kind of surprised, but then I wasn't. But you've got candidates there, because, that's a good looking group.
Yeah. I mean,
Top regional leader.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if I don't know what my plans will even be that week, but that's one where I wouldn't mind getting over to see that, because I just feel like it's no knock on any one team to just say that there's not a lot of givens in that field. Like you catch a team on the wrong night, and even if you were the favorite, you might go home, and that's what postseason basketball should be about. But also, like, I just feel like you draw a number 1 seed and you feel like maybe you get to ease into things a little bit more. And that is
no, there's no easing. I'll tell you what, the worst, because you got a lot of 1 seeds that get a bye. Some do, some don't. Just depends on where you're at. Probably the hardest game I ever coached, Dustin, were my opening round games in regionals.
Yeah.
Because we had high expectations every year. And I was just never, I felt more, for example, my first regional was at Cumberland, was the host. And we were the 2 seed we were there. Neoga was the 1 seed there. In our first game, I think we played Beecher City, I want to say. I think that's who it was. Beat them pretty good. And then turned around and played Cumberland the second game. And Cumberland liked to be up-tempo. Back then, they were pretty up-tempo with that group. And I still remember 2 of my kids, 2 of my seniors said, "Coach, they like to run." I said, "Yeah, I see that." They said, "They don't know what running is." And when we played them before the end of the first quarter, Dustin, their kids were tugging on their shorts. We took anytime a team liked to push it, my kids salivated because that was what we wanted to do, both with defensive pressure and pushing it offensively. And yeah, but I felt more comfortable in the second game than I did the opening game, which is strange.
And I will say that there's something for getting pushed early too, to eventually making a run. I go back to that last T-Town boys team that went to state, and obviously, I don't bring this up to bring up any bad memories for you, but they had to play.
I mean, did it on purpose.
They had to play
Newton in the regional.
Yeah, they
won a nail biter. What, they win by 2?
Yeah, they won by 2 points.
Vandalia overtime.
Yeah.
First game of the sectional. Beat us by 2 in the sectional final, literally at the buzzer, hit a jumper with 2.7. They get to a super and actually got to relax and win by 10, 12.
I think it's 10 against Central A&M, right? Yeah.
But then turn around. Now you play Nashville, the team who's been ranked number 1 in the state all year, undefeated.
And Nashville had been just beating the hell out of everybody that they were playing. And I remember, and maybe I just remember this because it made me look smart, but I remember writing a preview for that game for the newspaper and saying, T-Town's battle tested. They have been on the edge since they played Newton, and Nashville hasn't been pushed.
Nashville beat T-Town at the Riverton shootout by 20 points at the end of the season.
Yeah. And
however, King Crawford did not. He saved some things.
Sure.
For later. Let's just put it that way.
Sure.
And then played them much differently at state and beat them. And we had played Nashville. I had played both. And I had a guy call me before the state tournament, and he said, "Who's the better team?" And I said, "Teutopolis." "Well, you're no." I said, "No, Nashville's already beat." I said, "Just wait."
Yep.
And and then they got that win. I think they beat them by maybe 10 points, and then turned around and got beat in the semis in double overtime, and it was questionable. Couple things happened late in the game that probably didn't benefit the
team. I was there. It was Warrensburg, correct?
No, Moreau
Forsyth. I get them mixed up. Warrensburg Life and Moreau.
Robo Krebs.
The Krebs kid ended up he went to UIC, I believe, right? And he was a good player,
Yeah, nice player. I mean, but it was a case where, they were a very guard-oriented team, and Kenny really liked you to be a post-oriented team because he would just tell Craig Wessendorf and Rich Bories that, those guys will take you to get a bucket of chicken if you beat on them. And so they would beat on them. So, yeah.
Well, so there you go. Look at the upcoming regionals for the boys. Again, the girls regionals really get started in earnest tomorrow. There were some preliminary games yesterday. Again, they all went pretty much the way we thought, but like the Effingham girls get started tomorrow. And again, there'll be regional finals this week on Thursday and Friday, just kind of depending on which regional it is. And
I didn't understand that, but yeah.
No, well, and it complicated things for us on the station because we cannot do 2 broadcasts on Thursday night because of
national. Well, here's the other thing. It's the last week of boys, and you're playing all 4 classes of girls. And now you're playing those at the same time, all 4 classes. Yeah, it's just.
And
I just hope there's enough officials.
and we didn't really get into it too much, but we've gone for an hour and a half. But just to kind of wrap things up, one game, of course, that's not on those girls regionals schedules that we're gonna obviously that's gonna draw a lot of interest is the T-Town or St. Anthony and Altamont are going to be playing each other at the Inlow Center on Tuesday night.
Yep, that's going to be a huge game.
Big NTC regular season game. You know, it's
Besides who wins.
pretty much the biggest one left on the schedule for anybody local, I would say. I don't know. Someone will tell me I'm wrong. Altamont still has to play Windsor Stew Straws too. So like, you know, they've got a couple of that is a backloaded conference schedule for them. They're going to get their two
Oh, they got Stew Straws Friday.
Yeah. That's a hell of a week, isn't it? That's you don't look for that, but I guess that's, you know, they're going to be in a tough regional. You might as well get it started now. So there you go.
Johnny's postseason starts Tuesday.
So there we go. We're going to hold off on an attaboy this week. We figure there's going to be so much basketball played this next week that we might want to just save. We might just want to name 2 people. But yeah, there's going to be plenty to talk about next week. Plenty of basketball. So with that, Mike, unless you got anything else you want to touch on, I think it's probably about time for us to sign off.
That's all I got. Tell young Mr. White, thanks for being a part of the show today.
Yeah, they're
Doing a
only
good
making a little bit of noise out there.
That's all right. See, Morgan has been down, but she went around us. She snuck downstairs.
Yeah, well, she's a little more
Hey,
inauspicious than
Super Bowl pick. Who you got?
gosh, I want Cincinnati to win. So that's
Then say Cincinnati. Don't ho-hum around it.
I don't necessarily think they're the better team, but I think they can win, and I want to see them win. And I don't care about Stan Kroenke or any of that stuff. I don't have any real interest in that.
Well, you're a Bears fan. You're used to the losing.
Well, you know, I mean, I want to remind all these people that the previous owner of the Rams did the same thing whenever she moved them to St. Louis in the first place. So
No, entirely different.
So
All right, I'm going to pick the Rams, and I'm going to pick the MVP will be one of 2 people.
you're going to pick a couple of defensive players, okay? It's going to be either
It's
Aaron
either going to
Donald.
be Von Miller. Aaron Donald is amazing, but I'm going to say Von Miller or OBJ will be MVP.
Okay, fair enough. You know,
Just throwing it out there.
I don't have
Not a
any
big
real,
fan of OBJ, but he's kept his mouth shut and he's played for the Rams.
Yeah.
You know, but it'll be interesting. So I'll pick the Rams in that. So
I've
we'll
just
see what
seen
happens.
I've seen so much Matt Stafford over the years. I'm not a big believer.
Understand.
Not a big believer of him in the big moments, but you know,
He hasn't had big moments before, Whitey.
well, you know, like a big moment, like maybe trying to win that one game a season and you know, Detroit.
All right.
Like that.
Okay.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for watching and stay tuned. Lots of postseason talk. We're going to break it down every week. So,
All right. Sounds good.
all
Talk
right.
to you.
Take it easy, Mike.
Yep.